So I'm recording this just before the day of the full moon in Capricorn and also just before Mercury goes retrograde. I thought it was best to get it done beforehand. And how are you feeling? Are you starting to feel emotions build? Are you starting to feel a little bit wired? Are you starting to feel like there's a lot going on and you're trying to get back into balance? I deliberately have had a day of resting and went to the beach, hence my beach hair and that lot glow from the sun. These are times when we really need to make some time for ourselves so that the pressure of the busyness doesn't take its toll. Anyway, that little lecture aside, this forecast is about exploring the planetary energy of the full moon in Capricorn, which is happening on the 29th or the 30th of June, according to where you are in the world. Pretty much, if you're in Europe, to Asia and Australia, you'll be experiencing this on the 30th of June. If you're in America and South America, etc., then you're going to be getting the full moon on the 29th. But irrespective, it's just over a day away and the energies are starting to build. So I'm going to be looking, first of all, at the planetary picture. Then I'm going to be looking at the Sabian symbols of the full moon and also the sun itself. So you get a real sense of the additional channeled cosmic messages. I have to say, I really love Sabian symbols, and I always check them out on Linda Hill's website, which I highly recommend. But one thing I forget to say and should say, it's worth buying her book that the symbols are based on, because in her book, it's more than just the symbols that you see. So I really recommend it. It's really worth checking her out. That's Linda with a Y. Anyway, after that, I'm also going to look at asteroids. There's a trans-Neptunian object. There's a few different things that are playing into this full moon, so that by the end of this video, you have a really good sense of all the different codings going on with this full moon. And hopefully that will help you know how to use it. A lot of people have the intention of working with the energies of the full and the new moons in terms of organizing their life. I always think after a full moon, when things have really culminated, we're starting to go into a release. We're starting to go into a shed where we can shed things, slowly let go of things. So you might also be asking yourself, what have I already built up? What have I already developed so much that now I need to let go of everything else? I think things can come into much sharper vision around this time. So anyway, if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa. Let's get on with it. So I'm going to bring on my slides. There they are. And let's get cracking. So this is a full moon in the sign of Capricorn, not Sagittarius. 1 second, I need to amend that. So you can see this is a full moon in Capricorn at 8:15. And if you've got planets in the sign of Capricorn or angles in the sign of Capricorn, in particular in the first decan, where like 0 degrees to 10 degrees, this particular full moon is going to be impacting those angles or those planets. Again, you need to know your chart to do that. If you don't know your chart or understand your chart, feel free to join my free community called Feel Good Astrology on the School platform. So you go to www.school, that's skool.com/Feel Good Astrology. There are lots of goodies there, but there's a classroom. And even if you're a freemium member, i.e., it's absolutely free to join, there's a gentle orientation into your birth chart. And so it's a very short course with lots of handouts and notes and things so that you can start to build the vocabulary, start to understand things and start to interpret your chart. And from there, you can absolutely progress. Yeah, this full moon in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So, you know, Saturn, Capricorn are very, let's say, sturdy, respectful, a bit slow. Not to say they're not intelligent, those energies aren't smart, but they just want to take their time. Everything arrives in just the right time with Capricorn. Things can't be rushed. There's a gradual climb, there's a gradual realization. And realization is a good word because it's very real, it's very practical. And so this full moon is absolutely wanting to ground things. If you think about it, currently we've got the sun in the sign of Cancer, which is our most emotional sign, I would say. It's ruled by the moon, so it's very instinctive. Cancer really brings up lots of issues to do with how well we feel like we belong. Do we feel safe and secure in our lives? And so at this moment in time, as the full moon moves so far away from the sun, and you know the moon is not happy in the sign of Capricorn, the moon is much better suited in the sign of Cancer. So this is a very, dare I say, this is a full moon that's trying to calm things down. The moon in, sorry, the sun in Cancer is absolutely there to help us feel things and connect into our emotions and also our memories. And the full moon in Capricorn is saying, whoa, things are getting too emotional here. Let's be calm. Let's take our time. Let's take a deep breath. Let's step out of the situation. Capricorn can seem a little cold. If you're feeling emotional and you want someone to really feel you in that and join you in your emotions, then probably asking a Capricorn is not the best idea, because they're going to meet you from a cooler position. And Capricorn moon, in particular, the Capricorn full moon, you might find that things get worse if they're not acknowledged. If you feel like you're not being taken seriously, your emotions, your feelings, etc. However, the moon in Capricorn, and indeed the full moon in Capricorn, is also very useful. Sometimes we need it. It's splashing your face with cold water after you've had a good cry. Sometimes we need to be back in our body and completely grounded, and that's what it's there for. The moon in Capricorn is also quite ambitious. Like it wants to consider ambition and consider status and consider, rather than having the emotional security that Cancer craves, this is like, how do I have the physical stature and the physical security, which I absolutely need. So it's really bringing apart, I think it's two sides of the coin of security. How can we get more security and safety? So yeah, this could be pushing your buttons if you've got a big safety thing going on right now. If you don't feel very safe, if you don't feel very well resourced, if you're feeling quite tired and feeling really drained, then the Cancer time can absolutely bring in a lot of emotions. Now, both of these, in their polarity, I always think of time as being a real theme. Cancer likes to go back into the past and to remember when things were good or when things were different. And Capricorn, I think, can honor the past and build wealth on the past too. So, for instance, here we have old stories and here we have old things that get restored and sold for a shit ton of cash. Capricorn has a great way of accessing this old stuff and turning it into treasure. It's time that helps. And whoever said time is the best healer and everything gets better every day that passes, you'll feel much more whole, or whatever it is. That's a real sort of Capricorn mindset. I think time is really important with this full moon. So if you are ready to put some things from the past to bed, this is a good time. Or if you're wanting to look for where your emotional treasures are that could be really turned into something, then again, this is the time. It might be that something that's hurt you or has stuck in your mind is there for a reason. And once you sit with it, you think, damn, that's the energy I've needed the whole time. Why did I forget that? You might find some of your emotional outbursts or emotional feelings, extreme feelings from the past, actually were really authentic and really helped you. I think as we get older, we get really shamed out of feeling strong emotions. Whereas if somebody just held us, listened to us, and we felt heard, most of our traumas would have evaporated and dissolved, because trauma is so much worse when you feel isolated, because then you start to doubt yourself. And actually, that's one of the worst things that you can do, because when you doubt yourself, you doubt your reality. And I just think that's really difficult. So I think this could be an interesting full moon, and I think it could absolutely be helping us. Now, given that Mercury's retrograde here and has literally just gone retrograde, that's interesting. It's in the sign of Cancer. He's ready, poised to assist with the up the uprush of emotions. He's there to help you process stuff over the next 3 weeks. And so that is actually adding into the story of this full moon. Where are your treasures? And, you know, can you rebrand your emotional outbursts or your emotional episodes? Is it possible that they served something very useful that you might have discarded or you might have felt ashamed of? I can think of loads of times when I've lost my rag or got very emotional, and they stick in your mind, because when your everyday goodness happens, it doesn't really stick in the mind, because I think overall we're happy when things are good. But when something triggers an emotional reaction, we often hold on to it for some reason. It really plays in our mind. I often think about things for many days after they happen and think, oh, did I do the right thing? Did I not do this? So you can see where I'm going here. But maybe some of your emotional reactions were meant to happen, had a real meaning. Maybe there's something in there that needs to come out to be understood, because if you've been shut down since that time, you might have lost a valuable resource. Ultimately, Cancer has some defensive maneuvers, it has pincers. And yes, it is very good at running and hiding and cooning up under a big rock when it needs to. That crab will hide, but it can fight back, and it does need to fight back. And what happens if you've been told off or shamed out of your own defense mechanisms? You're like a sitting duck. And I think we do that to kids in many respects. I remember as a child getting bullied at school, and my mum said, "Oh, Lisa, just let it pass. This will go. These people will. There's nothing you can do about it. Just accept it." They're jealous of it. She put in some platitudes, and bless her, she was doing the best she could. She said things like, "They're just jealous of you. That's why they're doing it. So hold that jealousy in you. Feel good that someone was jealous of you." And I don't think they were at all. Things they were bullying me about weren't things that they'd be proud of. But my dad, like when my mum wasn't looking, would say, "Look, Lisa, the only way you can get rid of bullies is to stand up to them and bully them back." And so with these two different styles introduced to me, I had no idea what I was going to do. Like, how was I going to process that experience of being bullied, or process or understand that whole process? Really, what I needed was to have a good bloody cry and for them to let me do it. Eventually, after some time, I did stand up to bullies, and trust me, they never openly bullied me again. We learned something, but I think this is also pulling at our ancestral defense mechanisms. Have we shut them down? Because ultimately, we have skin for a reason. It is our barrier to the world. Everything has a skeleton and an exoskeleton, or a skin. Everything has its little layers of separation, because in this reality of duality, we are here. It's my belief, it might not be yours, but this is my firmly held belief, that we're here to explore right and wrong, good and bad, up and down, in and out, and all these other things. And we can only do that when there are hard boundaries between things, when we can understand things. And when things go into this kind of shades of grey, it's very difficult to know what's right and what's wrong, and how to process things, how to make sense of things. So I do think, especially seeing as Mercury retrograde is going through a very sensitive part of all of our charts, that there is something about, have you been able to protect yourself? What have you learned about self-protection? And what do you need from your past right now to be able to build some great and useful resources? There's probably something from your past that could be updated and brought into your real life to, I don't know. I just think these things happen for a reason at the right time, for us to remember, remember our skills, remember our instincts, and start to use them to our benefit. So that's a little bit of background information as I see it. Now, of course, there's lots of other things going on. So this full moon is in a square to Neptune. The moon is separating from that square, but it came in, or it will be coming in just before the moon goes full. And squares between the moon and Neptune, I've got one in my natal chart. I see these as squares that can really be disempowering, where we might start to doubt ourselves, where we might gaslight ourselves, and we won't trust. So I think one of the key points about this full moon is, whatever is coming up is here for us to learn to trust ourselves. And the moon is moving out of this square. It's not moving into it, it's moving out of it, suggesting that we already know enough about how we disempower ourselves. This time we're learning how to empower and stand and reassure and know ourselves. This is really about self-trust. Now, we've also got the moon approaching or applying into a square with Saturn. Now, this can also be a little bit destabilizing and disempowering. Now, this is something that I see as being a little bit more physical than in the mental realm. Saturn, currently in the sign of Aries, is really wanting to test boundaries. He's also wanting to strengthen your boundaries. And so whatever is coming up here is, I think, giving you a lot of instruction. Whatever arises for you around this time is showing you where you might need defenses, or where you might need to toughen up, or where you might need to observe the differences between things. Saturn can be quite analytical. Saturn wants to measure things. So I think this is really encouraging us to not take things as read. Really experiment and find out what your truth is, and measure things, like really understand them as plainly as you can. Now, we've also got, and I love this, is the full moon is in a trine to Chiron. It's separating from this, but this trine to Chiron, I think, is really showing, and also the sun is separating out of a sextile to Chiron. But this sort of Chiron full moon energy is showing that this is meant to be healing us. This is meant to be showing us where we can already heal ourselves, where we've already got everything, every answer that we possibly need actually lives within us. And so to me, this is really representing the healing potential. Now, at the same time as this is going on, Mars and Uranus are applying into a conjunction. If you haven't watched it already, I've already released a week ahead forecast where I talk about these with a little bit more focus. But Mars and Uranus together are absolutely reminding us of maybe where we need to take action and free ourselves. Uranus absolutely needs to be spontaneous, and it's about changing our consciousness. With Mars here, we're taking action. This is real mental, intellectual action. We might be communicating. It's not physical, like we're not putting our fists up necessarily. But Mars and Uranus is like, they're very heady, signifying that there is a change of consciousness coming. And this is really quite dynamic. And so that's also playing into this whole full moon experience. So, what I really gather from this is whatever's going on around the full moon, by next weekend, when Mars and Uranus are absolutely exactly in that conjunction, you might find you're already shifting. So I'm excited by that. I think that's very helpful. Now, we've also got Mars and Uranus also in a trine to Pluto. They're both applying into this trine with Pluto. So it's strengthening, it's in a strengthening trajectory. To me, this is really encouraging us to have a change in consciousness, because actually the world is changing in consciousness, and resiliency, like mental agility and resilience, is really important. And I think these are here to teach us that. And of course, this full moon and the actions of Mercury retrograde, which are releasing emotions and releasing memories and helping us reevaluate our memories to see if we've still got the same story. Are we still holding on to that story? Or has it evolved? Has it changed? Whatever we're releasing right now is helping us become more resilient. So there's a point. A couple more things. So Uranus and Mars are also applying into a sextile with Neptune. So however we're shifting, it's also working in, I would say, with cosmic laws and with the imagination and with psychic energy. I like this. I think this is encouraging us to use creativity to find our answers. It also might suggest that subliminal things can help. Anywhere where there are veils between your conscious reality and your unconscious mind, might be dream work that is helping you to make a leap in consciousness. And then the last thing that I really recognize with this whole pattern is we've got Neptune in a trine to Mercury retrograde and also Jupiter. So Jupiter is advancing into this, or applying into this exact trine with Neptune. That's already coming in. With Neptune and Jupiter together, things are going to get very open in terms of what we think consciousness is. Our ideas are going to be really opened up wide and get very intuitive and inspired. I think we can have some real beautiful leap forwards. I think it's going to be amazing. And then we've got Mercury retrograde. I've put here that it's separating from the trine with Neptune. It's not actually separating, because that would imply it's already joined, but it's just moving out of it slightly, and it will later come into a trine with Neptune. So we are getting overtones of helpful Neptune and Mercury retrograde, which is the imagination. It really is pure imagination, in particular with Mercury retrograde, specializing in investigation. It really feels if there's something you want to know about, this is the time of deep dives. So there might be something that comes up in your unconscious mind and you think, oh, wow, that feels a bit stronger than I was imagining. And you might type a few words into the internet, or you might write a few words in your journal. You might go for a walk and then you hear something, and it's this cosmic storyline that's evolving. Now, to me, these aspects here are really reminding me of the book, The Celestine Prophecy. Now, I don't know if you've ever read it. It's a foundational piece of work. I remember reading it in my early 20s. It's really old, but I still think it stands the test of time. This is about a spiritual adventure and how we find clues and how those clues lead into other clues. And before you know it, you've got a whole new way of life, a whole new way of seeing things. So this is the potential carried in with this moment in time, with this full moon, with Mercury retrograde, with Jupiter just about to go into Leo, which I'll be talking about tomorrow. So they're my thoughts on the actual planetary picture. Let's now have a look at the Sabians. So the Sabian symbol for Capricorn 8, when you go on Linda's website, which again, I can't recommend more highly, it's www.sabiansymbols.com. Again, really consider getting her book because it's incredible. So you put in 8 Capricorn and it will always get rounded up to the next number. That's what's meant to happen. And so this is an additional layered meaning for this full moon in Capricorn. An angel comes carrying a harp. This degree shows being able to care for others, being there when they need it. It also shows that angels will come when you call on them, when you're most in need yourself. You may be able to tune in and radiate harmony around you, inspiring confidence and joy. This pictures care, generosity, and a fulfilled selfhood. Inspiring people to do the best can bring rewards to all concerned. The trick with this degree can be sorting out whether to trust the tune that others sometimes play. Following someone for the wrong reasons can just lead you astray. Messages of peace from the other side, being in tune spiritually, elevated views of humanity, creating harmony, pulling on heartstrings, redemption, gurus, revelations. So to me, there at the time of this full moon, there are energies of things coming good. There's this feeling of possible optimism, and it's really coming from caring for others. And in the way that you might be an angel to somebody else, there may well be an angel in disguise or even right in front of you, right before your eyes, who's there to really assist when you really need it the most. If you're a harpist, I think this may well have some extra meanings for you. But I like this. Now, given that every time we have a full moon, the degree that it happens at, so 8 Capricorn, is an important degree until we come to the next new moon, from new moon to full moon to new moon to full moon, and so on and so forth. I think the degrees that they happen on are important for the next 2 weeks. So given that there are angels coming, there are angels nearby, to me, this sounds like quite a good time because we've had some very strong earthquakes and, there's all sorts of different things where I can see that angels are really needed. Now, if we have a look at the sun in Cancer, and this looks really terrible, actually, when I look at it. A small naked girl bends over a sparkling pond trying to catch a fish. Now, I said that sounds terrible. That's like my cynical adult self. But actually, I've seen little children. In fact, I've gone kind of pseudo fishing in river beaches with my kids, and they might be like semi-naked trying to catch a fish. We can actually see this very innocently. So this symbol speaks of naivety, there you go, innocence, beauty, and delight in simple things. A young child is trying to grasp at things that seem elusive and fleeting. You may find yourself unable to grasp the meaning of some things that happen in your life, but still fascinated by what is unfolding. Keeping a sense of delight and fun while going after what you want is likely to ultimately bring you the satisfaction you desire. Your position is comparatively innocent and your perceptions are probably rather limited. Still, lessons will be learnt about what is and what is not possible. Innocently reaching out for experiences can bring rewards and beauty. Curiosity, infantile cravings, fascination with the illusory, grasping at abstractions, inexperienced sexuality, childhood games, objects that cannot be held or captured. Now, what I really like about this is that it's taking us back into childhood. You know how I was saying Cancer and Capricorn? The Cancer sign is really innocent at its most fragile. And if you think of the crab, it's got that hard shell. It needs that hard shell because inside it's soft goo. So I actually think this is talking about the Cancer before it had the shell, the little child that doesn't need a protective energy yet. It's still in that place of open curiosity. And I remember talking about something like this in a reading very recently. I think that state of innocence, that state of bliss, that state of everything is okay, that state of being blessed, I think we can reach that like in a moment, like we can momentarily grasp that. There are times in our whole history of consciousness of being like whoever you are and me being Louisa. In my lifetime, there have been little glimmers of that perfection where I knew everything was right, everything was safe, and life was a game and it was an utter delight. So I'm hoping that this Mercury retrograde with this full moon between Cancer and Capricorn is bringing in some of these moments, because when we think about the past, it's not all about the sad things, the difficult things. What about the special moments? Where are they and what are they also teaching us? So I'm glad this Sabian symbol's spoken to that effect. Next, let's have a look at the asteroids and other stuff. So I always go to, and I highly recommend this as well, I always go to serennu.com. So that's SERENNU.com. And you can put in, like I've put in the time, date, and place of the exact full moon in my location. You could put in your time, place, and date of birth. And once you've clicked go, it will bring up, it will look through like 1,000 asteroids and it will list them all on the exact moment that you were born on, or on the exact moment of this full moon. And what I do with this is I look for asteroids or bodies that are in conjunctions to the full moon, are in oppositions, or in squares, because these create very dynamic energies, and sometimes trines as well. So you might find that helpful. If you're looking for yourself, I recommend looking for conjunctions, like what is working with your moon, for instance, what's working with your ascendant. And I recommend the same with the Sabian symbols, that just these two techniques alone will give you so much more information about your cosmic coding. Anyway, I digress. So we've got Niobe. Now she's showing up right in between Neptune and Saturn in the sign of Aries, in a square to the full moon. That means she's in a square to the moon and also the sun. Now, she had 14 children and felt so chuffed. She had 7 boys, 7 girls. They're all perfect. And she was bragging about it to a goddess, I can't remember which one, who had 2 children. And the goddess felt majorly peed off about it. And basically, her kids got murdered. And she was so upset because she'd lost her perfect children that she just wept and wept and wept and eventually turned to stone. So to me, this is absolutely, first of all, talking maybe about the grief about children who've been killed. And given that we're coming into a time of, I think, discovery and uncovering, like the uncovering of things. And we've got this full moon that maybe is revealing stuff about our past and our memories, and also playing the Cancer Capricorn kind of thing, which is family and home versus career and status. I think we'll see where capitalism or any kind of feudalism has taken us. It's taken us outside of our family bliss. And I think it can have a real net loss effect on people. This might be also talking about the degradation of our relationships with our children and the grief that comes from that. Or if you're in a place of grief and weeping, it might be talking about that feeling of being turned to stone. A full moon in Capricorn can absolutely feel like a switching off or deregulation of emotions. It's like, I'm turning those emotions right down. Capricorn doesn't want to feel those. And Niobe absolutely didn't want to feel it, couldn't feel it. It was too painful to feel it. So there's something of the story of painful emotions that you may have shut down just so that you could, cope. So that's quite an important, like, you can look up her story if you want. She's well known in mythology. Then we've got a centaur who's at 8 degrees, so exactly in a T square with the sun and the moon, and he's in Libra, which makes it very tricky because Therius is a really, again, another arrogant, overconfident, like Niobe, very strong centaur. And he wrestled bears and he was cruel. Anything he was wrestling, he dragged them fully alive back to his den where he could off them. And he was really cruel and mercenary about it. He would also stalk prey and he would make a plan over time. And he was also very wild and lawless and like a law unto himself. And so there's that sort of energy of predation that is also coming up around this time of the full moon. So maybe some of the memories coming up are reminding you of predation, or maybe this is just speaking about what's going on in the world, like the idea of predators and the idea of innocence. So yeah, I do think this full moon could be bringing up quite a bit. But remember, the full moon, it's not just on that day. That coding, I truly believe, stays for a couple of weeks until the new moon comes in, and then we've got a bit of a reset. So this is really carrying on. And of course, we've got Mars and Uranus coming closer and closer together. I think there's going to be some information that's just going to get... Don't want to call it because I think that's dangerous. But my sense is we're going to suddenly get really flooded with a lot of information. And especially seeing as Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Cancer right now, I just think so much stuff from the past is coming up. Also, when we think about it, Chiron has just gone into the sign of Taurus, where we can feel and ground things, and we know we need to look after ourselves, but it will, in 3 months' time, go back into Aries. And when it was in Aries, boy, oh boy, were we identifying with pain. So to me, it makes sense that right now things might be coming up so that we get another chance to work with it through Aries before coming back into this position when Chiron comes back into Taurus next year. We'll be absolutely going into a phase of embodiment and a phase of being in our bodies and not being in the terror and not being in the upset. So yeah, this is bringing up a lot. So the Sabian symbols, I think, were quite light and fluffy. There are angels by your side. Whatever's going on, there are angels, and we are here to, I think, support the innocence and beauty and delight of all simple things, and also protect young children. And then here, to me, it just feels, whoa, there's some stories here going on about lost trust. Now, we've also got Ixion, who's a nasty piece of work as well. And Ixion is in a conjunction with this full moon. So it's really strongly coded into this. Now, Ixion was a human, king of the Lapiths, and he double crossed somebody in a really nasty way, leading to him murdering another human. And it's recorded that he was the first mortal to kill one of his own. Now, Zeus took pity on him and was trying to give him a second chance and tested him because he thought Ixion was probably going to betray him. And so he knew that Ixion wanted to get off with his wife, Hera. And so he set a nasty little trap just to check out what Ixion was going to do. And so and this is all going to tie in weirdly. So he created this fake Hera out of clouds called the Nephili, and where Ixion was so hell-bent on mating with Hera and taking Hera for himself, he basically brought about the birth of the centaurs. Nephili became pregnant and birthed Centaurus, I think it was his name. And then from Centaurus came the race of centaurs later. So Ixion, because he betrayed not only his fellow humans, but then betrayed Zeus or Jupiter, he was absolutely going to help him. Basically, it was deemed that Ixion was such a terrible character, turning on his own kind and then turning on God as well, or the gods, and that he was put in this like spinning disc of hellfire for the rest of eternity. So he was absolutely punished. So again, not another message of love and light. Here the message is, if you've done wrong and you've betrayed your own kind but also betrayed God, that boy, your time is coming. So there are lots of seeds here sown about retribution and punishment for being mercenary and predatory. And also, yeah, like, how do we protect children? How do we protect innocence? So this is huge. And I don't want to say that because this is the picture as I'm looking at it, that this is what's going on in the world right now. I always think, where has this been happening to you? Like, where have you been dealing with your own feelings? I don't think predation is something that necessarily just lives in those people over there. There are many moments where we will have all sorts of human emotions that might lead us to feel like we want to dominate another person. And that's why I think we've got free will. So we get to experience lots of different things, and we come to be able to make our own decision based on our own moral compass. We go through the hell of considering, maybe for a nanosecond, like you come into this feeling of, no, I'm powerful, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden there's a part of you that's like, whoa, what are you saying? And you mentally unwind it and say, God, please, I hope you weren't listening. We all have these moments. We all have these falls from grace. And as I look at this, I think even when you've had a fall from grace, there are gods or God, there are heavenly forces that are here to help. But are you going to keep doing it? Because if you are, you're on your own. That's what I really hear from Ixion here. Then we've also got Maki Maki, a trans-Neptunian object that is absolutely about creativity, fertility, new beginnings. He's all about ecological wisdom and devotion. So that's also playing into this. I think we are looking for a new time, a time of beautiful new beginnings where things can get off in a new way. Maybe we're looking for new beginnings from the idea of Therius, our own inner predator. And then the final asteroid that I think may well be playing into this is Hera, who Ixion thought he was getting his end away with. Hera, she is Zeus's missus. She's also known as Juno and married Jupiter. So Hera and Zeus, that's the Greek, or you've got Juno and Jupiter, that's in Roman, but they're the same characters. So Hera, she's the queen of Olympia. So she's pretty important, like the queen of the gods. She's the wife of Zeus. So she absolutely is a goddess to do with marriage. She's also to do with family and childbirth. And I see her as a god of marriage. Like I will put Hera or Juno into a birth chart if I'm interested in marriage, looking at somebody's chart. I think she gives us some really good clues. But one thing she does show up as is a little bit jealous and vengeful, like getting revenge. So she doesn't take too kindly to the infidelities or the offspring of the illegitimate children of Jupiter or Zeus. And so she also has this wicked backlash if she's been cheated. But ultimately, I think Hera is there to stand for marriage and family and childbirth, which might sound really outdated from some people's perspectives, but she's talking about a family unit of sorts. Humans tend to congregate in families. We come together in units, we gather together. And so she stands for that. And this is in a trine to the full moon, suggesting that this is where we're leaning against an open door. There are ways to process this full moon. And maybe one of the ways we're processing it is to recognize we need to bring our families closer. And in doing so, some of this stuff kind of evaporates. So they're my thoughts based on the coding of this full moon. I hope it was helpful for you. Like I say, there's so much going on. It's hard to keep track. So I hope you're doing well. If you would like to deep dive with me, where I take this kind of approach to your own chart, or we have a conversation about your chart, then just get in touch. All of my details are below. If you'd like more of these kind of wild and wacky forecasts, there's more on my free community on the School platform. So again, feel free to join me there. It's www.school.com/feelgoodastrology. Anyway, lots of love to you. Happy full moon, and catch you on the other side. Bye for now.